Hello, I'm Kristen Hawkins, president of Students for Life Action, which is honored to operate in more than all 50 states across the country, where we've worked this past election cycle to bring a pro-life majority both to the U.S. Congress, now to the White House and state houses across our nation. In particular, our organization focused on the youth vote. And in case you missed it, they voted in larger margins than ever before for hope and a future. We had predicted up to a 40% winnable margin, and the wins even surpassed that. America had the option of picking the most radical pro-abortion ticket in world history and soundly rejected it. In some cases, though, some ballot pro-abortion late-term ballot referendums did pass, but it's not the end of our story. Unless you exclusively read mainstream media now reporting that, many of them reporting that there's nothing that can be done on the human rights issue of our day, abortion, unless you read them, there is a plan. And those reports that we're seeing from the mainstream media, the messaging we're seeing from Planned Parenthood executives that in many states now, the option, the ability to protect women and children from the predatory abortion industry are off the table. They are just plain false. Those who told you that abortion would win a presidential election, and that battleground states wanted nothing more than more death by intentional abortion, are now these same people telling you that there's a roadblock in place on pro-life legislation, both because of these state mini rows, because of these late-term Constitution ballot referendums that passed, but also they'll say it's lack of GOP interest. But things are going to get interesting. And the conventional wisdom is not so smart. In the states at the federal level, a vigorous and vibrant agenda lays ahead in the taking of the White House and the Congress for the GOP. And if we take President Trump at his word about addressing weaponized government, there's a lot we can do. And so today we're going to dive into some of the details, some of the plans that the pro-life movement has in place for how we can make America pro-life again. And we're going to be showing you how you can join us to make America pro-life again with our roadmap. But first up, before we introduce some of our state legislative leaders and other experts who are on the line, I want to first introduce U.S. Congresswoman Virginia Foxx of North Carolina, who's joining us on a very busy day to tell us about some of the legislation that we're looking at the federal level up on Capitol Hill, and what still motivates champions and legislators like her. Congresswoman?
Well, thank you, Kristen. And I want to thank Students for Life Action for all that you do. You all have certainly made a difference in this country and making America safe for life again. I am a staunch advocate for the unborn, and I always have been since I was in Congress and even before that. And I've held the belief that God's most precious gift of life should never be squandered under any circumstances. On the issue of chemical abortion pills, the mainstream media certainly knows how to parrot the talking points of the left and mislead Americans on how dangerous these pills really are. However, there are some in the media who are not doing the left's bidding and are instead calling attention to the truth. I came back on Sunday to DC after a few weeks of being home, and I have all my Wall Street journals and other newspapers stacked up here, and I try my best to go through them and keep up with what's going on. And I happened to pick up the October 7th. Now, I know people think you're crazy for reading old newspapers, but if I haven't read it and I don't know it, it's still news to me, as I point out to my husband. And there's a really, really good article in the Wall Street Journal on October 7th from Nicholas Tomano that exposes the dangers of the left's pro-abortion narrative, as well as pointing out the dangers of chemical abortion pills overall. And we know that there were stories told in the election that maligned hospitals and talked about how they distorted these issues. And I think it's important that we get the truth out there. The title of the article is "The Truth About Amber Thurman's Death." This was a story that was told a lot on the campaign trail by Harrison Walls. And I encourage people to read it when you have the time, and I'll make it available to you all so that you can send it out to people who might not have a chance to get it. One of the most important things that Congress can do now is call attention to the facts and expose the pervasive, misleading narratives that distract the American people from the true horrors of murdering unborn babies. Congress, as well as all defenders of life, must continue to bang the drum on this issue and work to educate everyone we can on why chemical abortion pills and the abhorrent practice of abortion are a blight on our society. While the left can use all the clever wordsmithing it can to make what they call abortion seem palatable, we have something in our possession that the left does not: the facts. So I appreciate being with you all this morning. And again, I'm very, very grateful to Students for Life Action for all that you have done. Kristen, you're out there all the time. You're banging the drum all the time, and you're very visible on this issue. And I thank you all for having me with you. And I hope that God is going to continue to bless your work and certainly bless what all of us are doing in the pro-life movement. I'm sorry I can't stay with you longer, but we've got an extremely busy schedule this week trying to prepare for the new session of Congress. And I'm glad I was able to be with you for a few minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. You've been such a heroic champion for life. I've been with us every step of the way. Even I remember my first time on Capitol Hill after we had launched Students for Life. We were honored to be with you. Leaders like Virginia Fox are why things are going to change in legislatures in DC, but also across the country. And in case you didn't hear it, Students for Life Action has a winning record of life. And we have a plan to get to work right now where the real work really begins. So I'm going to introduce SFLAction's Vice President of Media and Policy, Christy Hamrick, who has been developing this Make America Again roadmap, this legal framework over the last year. So we can really get into some of the weeds and details of what we're proposing for federal and state legislators right now to get started for before January even begins.
Kristen, thank you so much for hosting this event, and to the state legislators and federal legislators who we've been talking with, and frankly, talking to groups all over the country, all over Washington, D.C. If I haven't talked to you yet about chemical abortion, it's because you haven't been listening. And for our friends in the media who are watching, for questions and answers and interviews, please email media@studentsforlife.org. Again, that's media@studentsforlife.org. We're going to give you an overview of where we're going to go with a Make America Pro-Life Again roadmap. And that roadmap started at the Supreme Court in the Carhart v. Gonzalez case. I was working in Washington, D.C. at that time. I remember when one of our board members, Senator Rick Santorum, was on the floor of the Senate making a pitch that partial birth abortion was a particularly evil and gruesome form of abortion, and a baby cried. And it shocked the entire gallery. We all went still. You can still see that on C-SPAN. That had to be fought all the way to the Supreme Court. And there were ways that we could stop a method and means of abortion, in that case, partial birth abortion, because of its health risks, because of a state's rights to legislate in protection of citizens, because of how it impacted women. And it's a very distinct legal roadmap. So what we have done in this roadmap, this Make America Pro-Life Again roadmap, which you can see online, is taking a look at legislation to break it down based on the principles of Carhart. And even in states where there are many rows, there are ways to address the number one method and means of abortion, chemical abortion pills, because, as Carhart v. Gonzalez detail, because of the harms to women, and in this case also to the environment. We're going to talk more about that in a minute. And what I like about this too, to be honest, is the media and the left likes to complain about the current Supreme Court, which I love. But Carhart v. Gonzalez came in a different court, because you can't actually go around hurting people just because you like abortion. So, you know, Kristen, I know this has been something that you've been passionate about too. How do you see us using this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we have a siege engine ready for these legal walls that we'll face at some state legislatures and legislative levels, and also the federal levels. But Gonzalez v. Carhart really helped us give a roadmap with the ending of gruesome, partial birth abortion. That was 2007, before the cracks in Roe's logic were clear to everyone. But I think it clearly allows states, Gonzalez clearly allows states and the US government to act to protect citizens, public health, and water safety. So the resource we're launching today for legislators across the country is really laid out using what we heard in Gonzalez, what the Supreme Court told us. Even if your state has said abortion is now constitutionally protected, that doesn't mean every action of abortion, every type of abortion. It doesn't mean that the abortion industry has an unlimited power to pollute our waterways. It doesn't say that, and Gonzalez proved that to us. So the legislative resource you can get this full packet online at makeamericaprolifeagain.com. That is where you can download the full PDF, where we're going to be kind of delving into. But I think it's really time for a strategic pivot for the pro-life movement. We've been saying that since the Dobbs decision came down, and now we have states lined up ready to get to work. And that's why I'm so excited. We've got some very special legislators, state legislators are going to be joining us in a few moments on this call. I'm actually coming to you live from a car in Arizona right now, where we're talking with legislators about path forward. But states are ready to get to work. We saw Republicans make great gains in the election in legislative chambers across the country, including an addition of many of our new young state representatives, some who are alumni of Students for Life, like Sam Farrington in New Hampshire, TJ Roberts, who will be serving in Kentucky, where we're pushing harder than ever before to protect life and law. And restrict abortion, the abortion lobby. Specifically, we now have bill sponsors confirmed and this is November, so we still have more time, Christy, to get more work done. But we have bill sponsors confirmed to introduce legislation targeting chemical abortion, a very specific type of abortion, but the leading cause of abortion in our country, in 13 states, including ballot impacted states of Michigan, Ohio, and Arizona. And you're going to hear from some of these legislators today. We have 7 states, legislators in 7 states confirmed to introduce our Clean Water for All Life Act, our wastewater bill, in Idaho, Wyoming, West Virginia, South Carolina, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Kentucky, with additional states who will be coming. And we also have legislators in 9 states who have expressed interest and will be leading the charge to target the trafficking of chemical abortion pills into our state. I mean, that's something we're all looking forward to see who President Trump's going to be naming the next Attorney General of the United States, because something that we've been very concerned about is the Biden-Harris DOJ has been telling abortion agents they can skirt federal law, the Comstock Act. And so we have states who are starting to say this is crazy that this federal law is being openly violated. And despite our actions to protect women and children in our state, the will of our state is being circumvented by the federal government. So Legislators in Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, West Virginia, South Carolina, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Kentucky. Many of the states have already acted to end abortion, or in this case of South Carolina, thanks to our work in the Republican primaries and the victories we saw in the general last week, who will soon be ending abortion in the state. Those legislators are going to be seeking to stop the illegal flow of chemical abortion in their states. We also have three other states seeking to follow in the footsteps of Wyoming, which passed the nation's first Chemical Abortion Prevention Act in 2023. So we have three other states who will be seeking to follow Wyoming in that. So, I just gave some specifics and kind of gave out our plan a little bit there. But it's important for us to make sure our pro-life movement understands, our leaders understand that we've got a path forward, and we've been working on this for months leading up into the election. Now that the election is over, now that we have a Republican trifecta in Washington, D.C., Republican majority control of legislatures, it's going to be time to get the work. And using the legal framework laid out in the Gonzales v. Carhart decision, we know there's a path forward. So folks, really do not discourage when you hear, the rhetoric from Planned Parenthood's lawyers and lobbyists saying, that's it, there's nothing can be done in Arizona, or nothing can be done in Ohio. That's not the case at all.
Yeah, one of the reasons why this legislation is so significant is that according to the Guttmacher Institute, and who can even know if they're telling the truth, there is no national abortion reporting law in the United States. It's all guesswork. It's all trust, but never verify. They say more than 6 in 10 abortions are committed with pills in the US. In Europe, it's up to 9 in 10 abortions. I think it's much more likely to be 7 or 8 in 10 abortions, frankly. And then you have illegal pill pushers like Aid Access and others trafficking into the United States and bragging about going into states with pro-life laws. So we don't know the scope of it. What we do know is that the harms of chemical abortion pills are something that we can address. They're 4 times more likely to have complications than even a surgical abortion, 10 times more likely a cause of death. And then because of what the Biden-Harris administration did during COVID, we are now sending people home to have an abortion at home with flushing human remains, blood and placenta tissue into the wastewater system, in which active metabolites, those things which actively cause the abortion, continue to be acting. 3 of our 4 citizens petition to the FDA deal with the environmental harms of abortion, because there are environmental harms if you look at studies in other states. And for our friends who are working with us and our friends who are working against us, we've got some data that's going to be coming that takes a look at the environmental impact of this, because that which disrupts a woman's biological system, endocrine disruptors, also disrupts biological systems in animals, plants, etc. So Students for Life Action filed an amicus brief before the Supreme Court in the FDA case, taking a look at the failure of the FDA as part of its sloppy processes to protect the environment. So we are going to be working with the Clean Water for All Act, because frankly, even if you love abortion, and there certainly weren't as many people that loved it as the Biden-Harris administration believed, that doesn't mean you don't want clean drinking water. This is a serious issue. These pills kill, they harm women, they empower abusers, and we think that we can do something about that. So Kristen, let me turn it over to you, because we've got some amazing people coming up.
We absolutely do. In the lawsuit that ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, heroically took to Supreme Court, which we all believe and know will be coming back again, looked at the sloppy approval process and the harms to women, as well as the conscience rights of medical professionals. But part of the story there is how most of these federal policies came to be. 3 Democratic Party presidents, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and Joe Biden, how they forced these chemical abortion pills on the market, deregulated them, and then allowed and continued to allow laws to be broken and regulations ignored for clean water. In fact, in 2000, when these pills were approved, the FDA didn't even look, did not check the box to ensure these pills, by putting them in the market, if they would affect or violate the clean water standards that we have. And That's significant. And in fact, here I want to just real quick before we bring on our next guest. There's a quick video we made of our incoming president, President Trump, talking about the need for crystal clean drinking water.
We want crystal clear, beautiful water.
Water and air. They were drinking such terrible water, such terrible water. I also had the cleanest water.
I really focus on the water.
We went into rural parts of the country and fixed people's water. Crystal clean, crystal clean. We had the cleanest water.
And we had the cleanest water.
Water,
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 water, water, water.
water.
All right. So in case you didn't get it, President Trump wants us to have clean drinking water. This should be a left and right issue with 100% support. We all want clean water. Anyone with a compassionate heart wants to see, women protected from predatory pill pushers. Every American wants crystal clean water. It's actually one of the things that, Christy, that we're seeing on campuses, even when we're talking with pro-choice students. We have our largest minds changed rate on college campuses when we start talking about chemical abortion pills, how they're polluting our water. And, I was at a dinner last night in Phoenix. I was here drinking tap water going, oh boy, I know what we just proved and we haven't released yet. I really shouldn't be drinking this tap water. And I had to stop myself and ask for bottled water. This is something that every American, and then I shared it with the party I was having dinner with, and everyone looked down at their glasses and was like, oh my gosh, every American needs to know this information, Kristen. So this is the reason we've developed this roadmap to, assist states that are now burdened with this new legal presumption that, the abortion industry is going to get this free pass. Roe did not stop pro-life laws or the pro-life movement. And many Roes that are now set in these new ballot initiative states will not be either. So our next two guests I want to introduce have already been working with Students for Life Action within the pro-life movement to introduce chemical abortion pill legislation, which, in case you haven't figured it out, is the majority of legislation we're talking about in our Make America Pro-Life Again roadmap. And in fact, it really could have been named the Make America Healthy Again Pro-Life roadmap as well. So I want to introduce our two next guests, Senator Patricia Rucker. She's the chief sponsor of our West Virginia bills, ending pill trafficking, chemical abortion pill trafficking, and the Clean Water for All Life Act. And we'll after we speak with Patricia Rucker, we're going to speak to Senator Tim Salzar of Wyoming, who is also gearing up with new legislative plans for the Cowboy State. These are two pro-life champions you're going to be hearing from in years to come. They will be the feature of many articles written from the left and the right. So I'm so excited to introduce to you these champions. Senator Rucker, you were one of the first to introduce a Clean Water for All Life Act in America. Why do you believe that states can regulate chemical abortion pills?
So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here. And of course, I always want to thank Students for Life and you, Kristen, for everything you do to protect life. There are many things that the states have jurisdiction over. Our citizens' health is definitely one of those things. So is our water in our state, and the environment in our state. And I have to tell you that when it comes to this particular issue, so West Virginia is one of the states that fortunately was able to almost completely prohibit abortion, but that chemical abortion, those pills, is very difficult to stop when we have, it can easily be mailed. We have folks that can just go across state lines, go to our neighboring states, which unfortunately are not like us. And it is probably the number one way in which abortions could still be happening in West Virginia. So clearly in our state, which has decided that it is a pro-life state, we even passed a constitutional amendment regarding protecting life. This is a major concern. And then when you add the environmental issues that you mentioned, and it's, affecting our water supply, like West Virginia's tourism is like the number one industry. It is the thing that really helps us ride out the ups and downs of the coal industry and the natural gas industry. Is our wonderful and beautiful state with all the tourists that come here. So having a clean water actually affects our economy and really is important, obviously, for the health of our citizens. West Virginia right now has the worst health in the entire United States. We're ranked 50th out of 50. So clearly, I have every reason and justification to push to try to help improve our health in every potential way, protect our fish, protect our waterways, and our tourism, our economy. All of those things are related. And the states do have jurisdiction. That's what basically Dobbs' decision said. So under all of those reasons, this is something that the state is very important that they should act to be doing.
Absolutely. I would say most Americans should all agree that legislators absolutely have the duty to protect our drinking water. And I'm so proud of all that you're doing and the fight that you keep up there in West Virginia, my home state of West Virginia. It makes me miss it every time someone talks about it. But I'm so thankful for the work that you're doing there. Senator Salazar, I want to bring you into this. States like Wyoming are famous for your outdoor life. Well, I love Wyoming. You know that. I'm a big fangirl of Wyoming. Do you believe that the harms to the environment, along with the harms to women, will make a case for regulation in this space? Why do you think that makes a difference?
First of all, I so appreciate Students for Life Action and you, Kristen, for your leadership. We would not have been able to pass the prohibition on chemical abortion in 2023 had it not been for you and Students for Life. Yes, to answer your question, it's incredibly important that we pass the Clean Water for All Life Act. It is the role of government, and I said this to Politico yesterday, it's the role of government to protect citizens. If we have abortion pills that are ending life, and then that chemical is ending up in our drinking water, the people of Wyoming have a right to know that. And one of the great things about this act is the transparency of letting my constituents and the people of this Wyoming know what's in their drinking water. But as you said, we love our outdoors. We have incredible scenic views. We are an agricultural state. And so not only will it affect humans and drinking water, but it gets into our ranching, our farming, our livestock. And these are potentially, well, they are dangerous chemicals. They're ending life. And the thought of having that in our drinking water, in our agricultural use is horrific. And we're going to go forward in Wyoming. We're going to present this to the state legislature in Wyoming, and we're going to have a discussion. And I think we'll be successful.
I can't wait. And I'm excited to join you in Cheyenne. I'll be there in February when it's really cold and windy.
We're looking forward to it.
A question to you, Senator Salazar, and Senator Rucker. Obviously folks are arguing that states who pass these ballot initiatives, they can't fight for the preborn, that there's nothing to be done. What are your words? Do you have any words of encouragement you want to share with your fellow state legislators about how to move forward now in this new era in their states? Especially I'm thinking about our friends and loved ones in Missouri and Arizona.
Yeah, I guess I would say not only to legislators throughout the country, but also to my colleagues in Wyoming. This is an issue where you can't fudge. Either you're supportive of the pro-life movement or you're not. I don't see an in between. Now you can argue there are exceptions or are not exceptions, but either you believe life begins at conception or it doesn't. And that really answers all the questions for you. It did for me, at least. Once you realize that life begins at conception, can you think of a more important issue than protecting human life? And that's what really brought me to the cause. In my 20s, this was an issue I could care less about. And then one day I saw a video that showed me and proved to me that life does begin at conception. And my eyes opened, scales dropped. And I wanted to get involved in government. I wanted a seat at the table. I wanted my voice heard with regard to protecting life. And so this is a time where we're starting to make, we're starting to get successes. We can't stop now. And if you are someone who comes from a faith-based background as myself, you also know that you have help from above. This is not only our fight, but the fight from above. And but you need to be courageous, and courage. One person with courage is a majority. And I truly believe we're going to win this fight and recognize that life does begin at conception. And I'm very hopeful. And Students for Life Action and you, Kristen, are at the forefront. You are just absolutely incredible. And I thank you so much for what you and Students for Life do.
Well, thank you for that, Senator. Courage is, contagious, right? And we know if we have one person, if you're one legislator that stands up in your chamber, you can lead this whole movement. And I think what's so, something that the mainstream media and some of these articles we're seeing written about these states that pass ballot referendums, it's fun. It makes me laugh because I think the pro-life movement endured the tyranny of Roe for 49 years. For 49 years, we faced the tyranny of Roe versus Wade. And every day we got up and we grew stronger, we grew larger, we grew more sophisticated, we grew more creative and innovative in our tactics and strategies. And we defeated Roe versus Wade, something that, I was told over and over again when we launched Students for Life that it was an impossibility. But we did that. And so obviously the pro-life movement isn't going to go away. Senator Rucker, before you take off, if you're still there, I think you're still there. How do you find as a woman when you're arguing on the floor, the chamber floor, for passing the Clean Water for All Life Act, for stopping the most dangerous form of abortion, these chemical abortion pills? What do you find to be, I guess, the winning argument beyond, hey, let's save babies? Everybody knows that's what pro-lifers want to do. Is it the harms to women that we saw at the Supreme Court, the case that was made at the Supreme Court, the emergency room doctors in the Metallic case, talking about these women and the high ER rate? Is it the clean water? What's kind of the winning messaging you're seeing that's really compelling other legislators to join you in this fight?
So obviously that's going to probably be different for every legislator and in every state, but in the state of West Virginia, which is a very socially conservative state, I would say the number one argument is the fact that this is harming. This is harming not just the babies, but the women themselves. And making that case and having that data is so, so crucial. So that's one of the ways in which I rely on you guys, Students for Life. You guys do a wonderful job of giving us that data and that information. And for any legislator that may be listening, I mean, they don't just leave you high and dry. They're there next to you. They make calls, they send emails, and they're helping you every step of the way. So it's so, so very important. But for my chamber, just making that case, showing that evidence that it is harming people. So, I feel that most legislators, they did not get elected to office to hurt people, and that's not a really good soundbite for them to be in that camp.
That's right. That's right. That's like your one job. The main job is to protect the citizens of your state. And I love how serious you both are doing and take that role. So I want to thank Senator Salazar. I want to thank you, Senator Rucker, for joining us today. It takes such courage to stand up for women and their preborn children, and we appreciate your tireless service for the pro-life cause and the pro-life movement and our mission to end the violence and the cruelty and the injustice of abortion. Christy, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce our last guest today.
Thank you so much, Kristen. We have one more special guest to try to round it out. And just to be clear, if you didn't already understand, we have federal plans, we have state plans and state champions. And those state plans include places where there are ballot initiatives, because just like Roe was not enough to stop the pro-life movement, neither are these ballot initiatives. We're joined right now by Arizona State Rep Rachel Jones, Representative Rachel Jones. Rachel, you are so kind to come and talk with us today, because I know you're in the car. So is Kristen. People are going back to Congress today. People are running all over because we have a lot of work to do. We've heard a lot, Representative Jones, that people in ballot initiative states, they're stuck. There's nothing that they can do. Why do you think that's wrong?
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I am so honored to be here, and I'm so honored to continue to be in the fight, because as you said, just because this horrific ballot initiative passed does not mean we stop fighting for life of the unborn. And, you know, I think one of the big things that we're going to have to deal with now, and one of the fronts that we can fight on, one of the things that we've honestly been a bit weak about is looking at the safety of the mothers, especially when we're talking about chemical abortion. Many people are not very educated on that issue. And as I learned, I was very honored to go to the Live Action Conference this last summer in North Carolina. And I left there hopeful to be able to still fight this. But I also left there understanding that there was going to be a big push for that, and understanding that the harm done to these mothers is horrific with that. You know, abortion, something we don't talk about is these mothers, what it does to them mentally is awful. I think something like 2/3 of women who have had abortions end up with PTSD from it. And a lot of these mothers, they are acting out of fear in the first place, and they're acting from a place of fear, and nobody is educating them on other options. So my plan to combat this initiative is to focus on those issues, to really gear the conversation more to adoption. You know, I have 5 children, and 3 of my 5 are adopted. And just to share a very personal story, my 12-year-old daughter, Lily, her mother's mother encouraged her to get an abortion when she got pregnant with Lily. She was young, she was scared. And I asked her, we still have a relationship with her, which is really awesome. I asked her, you know, what made you decide not to do that? And she said to me, it was not gray. It was very black and white. And I chose life for her. And as you can see, we adopted her, and we have a wonderful relationship with BioMom. And so these women need to understand. I met a woman at the Live Action Conference. She didn't even realize that adoption was an option for her. So we need to try to focus on the front end of this, encouraging women to make a different decision in the first place, and making sure we educate them on the repercussions of an abortion, whether it's a chemical abortion or a regular abortion. So that's really going to be my focus this next legislative session. I'm not going to go in hopeless. I'm going to go in hopeful that we can combat this ballot initiative in different ways and continue to fight for life.
Yeah, I think that's what's really interesting about these ballot initiative states is that, you know, Roe seemed like a roadblock, and yet there were laws about clinic regulation. There were laws about, you know, how best to handle healthcare. There's laws about coercion. There were a lot of different things that we could do. And I think what we liked about Carhartt and that roadmap, which following up what you just said, is it looks at the harms to women. One of the things they don't talk enough about is the no-test online distribution of chemical abortion pills really empowers abusers who can get these drugs and use them against women without their knowledge and consent. And suddenly you're in the middle of what you think is a miscarriage when it was actually an attack on you and your child.
Yes.
Women need more information, as you said, and it's a really exciting time. What's your word of encouragement to those legislators who might be watching in other states with ballot initiatives about the path forward that you see?
Well, as I said, I do think that there is a fight that we need to. I think a lot of people, it's a little bit worrisome to me that a lot of people don't realize the push that's coming with the chemical abortion pills and things like that. And I think they're really just, they're going to push that because it dehumanizes the process even more. where, you know, it's so easy. You take this pill and you're done and no big deal. We need to make sure that we really get that to the forefront, I think, of the narrative, and we need to do a better job getting a hold of the narrative. We have not done a very good job with that. So I think just remembering that there are other ways at the front of this to encourage women to make a different decision before they even go into that abortion clinic, before they order those pills, to stop the ability to be able to do that so easily through the mail. Those are the ways that we need to fight this now on the front end, and just encouraging women, giving them other options and talking more about that, and understanding that a lot of these women, they aren't educated and they are making decisions out of fear and very uneducated decisions. Just like I said, I met some moms who made different decisions at the Live Action conference and are forever grateful that they were aware of those other options. So I think we need to get in front of it this way and really be a voice for these women, especially the younger women. Like you said, unfortunately, these chemical abortion pills are likely going to be used by, you know, traffickers. So we have that issue where trafficking victims of trafficking, where out, not even within their will, they're going to be given these things. So we really have to focus on stopping that. And I think in Arizona, you know, we just got an even bigger majority in the legislature. So I'm definitely going to be pushing a lot of just educating my colleagues on the chemical abortion and how there's really going to be a big push for that. So we can't just lay down and die. We have to keep fighting for life. And I agree with you. I think we're in a really good spot to maybe get a hold of that narrative, which we haven't done so far. So I think focusing more on the women in the beginning and fighting from that angle and looking at this from a different perspective than we have been, I think that we can make a lot of difference for the women that feel like they have no other option.
Representative Jones, we couldn't thank you enough to interrupt your day to join us. And thank you also to everybody who's watching and to our other legislators who joined us. I want to keep to the schedule because, as we know, those who are watching have work to do as well. And when you want to read the fine print, go to makeamericaprolifeagain.com. Members of the media, again, can email media@studentsforlife.org. There is a lot of work to do, and we know there's a path forward to do it. Right now in Washington, D.C., they're starting with good appointments, as they should. We very much talked about the weaponization of government and HHS and FDA and others. There's opportunity for us to reverse the prejudice against pro-life Americans and the prejudice for abortion that the Biden-Harris administration exhibited. We are interested in legislation and efforts that are going to cut the funding, because as long as you're paying for abortion, it's federal. But with the Make America Pro-Life Again package, there is a way forward in legislation that follows a constitutional model that we know will work, whether you have a ballot initiative, whether you are a state legislator, a federal legislator. It will work because it's worked before, but it will also work because the pro-life movement will not give up on the human rights issue of our day. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you'll check out the website. Let us know if you need more resources, whether you're a legislator or a reporter.